Hey, buddy. Hey, you. All of you, any of you, everyone, whoever this needs to reach. I hope the message hits you loud and clear. It's a little story, a bit of my story. It's a bit of a mental health check story. It's approaching sunset out in LA, and a thought hit me speaking to and reconnecting with one of my friends who also moved here just a few years ago. Moved here from the East Coast. We actually met in DC and recently just reconnected out here in the West Coast. And we were chatting. We hung out a couple weeks ago. He's actually quite the night owl. Likes to be out late, like after 10, approaching midnight. And I'm somebody who's more of a daytime type of guy. I like to be back in bed by 10 p.m., the latest. But we were talking about hanging out. We're both doing some traveling coming up in the next few days, and we were talking about hanging back out again and reconnecting once we're both in LA. And I mentioned to him if we could please do something at a reasonable hour so that I can still keep my wits about me. And then he had mentioned that he's actually trying to abstain from a few vices coming up in March. He said no sex, no drugs, no alcohol. And I jokingly replied, well, we'll make sure to, schedule this before March. We both should be getting back before the end of February. So I think we can make it happen. But with that being said, it just made me think about the importance of doing cleanses. I know in my last video I had mentioned that I was fasting, and him talking about abstaining from some of these vices just reminded me the importance of doing cleanses, the importance of kind of recalibrating yourself, finding your center. And then it made me think about some of my connections out here in LA. I know that one of the big vices out here in LA, especially in the inner city, there are a lot of drugs that kind of circulate throughout the city. I myself am somebody who does enjoy and partake in cannabis for a myriad of reasons. One of them just being for anxiety. I was diagnosed with ADD when it was ADD before it became ADHD. This was way back in the 90s. So I still take that claim of ADD, even though clearly, according to science, it doesn't exist. It's ADHD. But those are just a couple of the reasons why I participate in cannabis. But end of last year, after I left my job, I kind of had my own mental vow to stop buying cannabis. I still will partake here and there in social settings, but just taking it out of my routine, taking it out of my habit, because I wanted to kind of go on my own cleanse. With that being said, it reminded me of my friend, not this friend, not the one who I'm going to reconnect with once we're done traveling, but another friend of mine. My first LA friend, who unfortunately left LA before I moved. But while he was here, and I'm going to turn around because there's so much traffic and I don't want to hear all that noise. But while he was here, I had visited a couple times, and we would connect and we would talk about goals, dreams, ambitions. He's a friend that I had met years ago in my days in Atlanta. And he is a creative just like myself. He actually pursued it in college, made a career out of it. And his ambitions were taking him to great places. He was living bi-coastal between LA and the East Coast, working on different projects, contracts, worked with some high-budget movies, doing visual editing and graphic arts. I was very proud of him, very inspired by his journey and the things that he was doing. What I didn't realize was that he was struggling with his mental health in a really deep, profound way that led to him kind of losing himself to a horrible drug binge. It was very disheartening to hear because I didn't know about his struggles. I didn't know that he was suffering in that way. I didn't know how lonely he was. I did not know how depressed he was until it was way too late. But I found all this out from neighbors who lived with him in the complex that I'm now living in, which is where he was at. They pretty much told me some of the tragic things that he suffered through while he was here and how he just lost himself. And a couple years ago, he reached out to one of our mutual friends and opened up really and vulnerably and just confessed a lot of the dark things that he was dealing with. And I don't want to do a deep dive into the story because it's not my story to tell. It's his story. But it impacted me because somebody who I felt so close to, who I was looking forward to and excited to moving out to LA and connecting with. Again, I had visited a few times and he was so hospitable each time I came and made sure I had a good time, made sure to, include me in events and things in his life. And to witness the fact that he was experiencing such a difficult struggle and didn't have anybody to confide in, anybody to lean on. It just really made me think about the importance of finding your community, of making sure that you do have somebody that you can rely on, that you can lean on, that can support you mentally, emotionally. That's one thing that a lot of people have vouched for about transitioning out to the West Coast, and that's why I do get pleasantly excited when I reconnect with friends or family out here, because everybody mentions and emphasizes the importance of finding community. I definitely get the vibrations and the energy of a lot of lost souls out in the West Coast. There's a lot of lonely people who don't feel seen and don't feel heard. And my friend, he is, from what I know, doing better now. He's in a better space. And I hope that he is continuing to stay healthy and to stay happy.